Welcome to Behind the Facts. I'm your host, Thipe Maelane, and in this episode, we're doing something special. As we close out 2025, we're taking you on a journey through 6 powerful conversations that defined our year. Conversations with the people working tirelessly behind the scenes to protect truth in our information ecosystem. From battling social media algorithms to combating climate misinformation, from data deserts in conflict zones to innovative offline strategies. This year, we've explored it all. So let's revisit the voices and insights that shaped 2025. We begin the year with the most pressing challenge, the algorithm. Commonly, social media platforms prioritize engagement over accuracy. And as Saja Mortada, manager of the Arab Fact Checkers Network, supporting fact checkers across 16 Arab countries, explained that this is a fundamental problem.
The core issue of amplification, algorithmic amplification, it lies in how social media platforms actually prioritize engagement over accuracy. So algorithms are designed, as you know, to show users content they are likely to interact with. And unfortunately, false or sensational claims often generate more engagement than fact-based content, as we see during wars or during specific events or during elections. How does that actually happen? Misinformation triggers strong reaction, whether it's fear, curiosity, outrage. All posts that spark emotions get more comments and shares, making them more likely to be promoted by algorithms. In addition to that, influencers and high-profile figures amplify actually misinformation. For example, if a public figure shares a misleading claim, even if it gets fact-checked later, but the original post might have already reached millions of people around the world. And finally, fact checks don't always have the same reach. Even when a post is labeled as false, for example, on social media, the correction of it and the fact-checking piece might not be seen by the same number of people who actually saw the original misinformation.
Despite these odds, Saja and her colleagues fight back through AI-powered tools, WhatsApp chatbots, and cross-border collaboration. When Meta scaled back fact-checking partnerships in 2024, they adapted, proving that innovation can keep pace with algorithmic challenges. Now, Saja's work focuses on the digital battleground, but here's the thing, not everyone is online. And in our second episode, we shifted from the algorithmic world to the physical one, exploring a question many overlook. What about communities where Meta doesn't exist, where X is irrelevant, and the internet itself is an absolute luxury? That's where Catherine Adeniyi from Africa Check in Nigeria and Chris Chinaga from ZimFact in Zimbabwe step in with offline approaches that meet people exactly where they are.
The essence of using the offline approach a lot of the time is to be able to reach the people who do not have access to the internet. And for us in Nigeria, a huge chunk of the population still don't have access to the internet, which means they rely on traditional media outlets like radio and oftentimes community radio and a lot of word of mouth. So you find out that sometimes we find people who are digitally connected pick up this information from the online space. And then when they go to these communities who are less connected, they are like the god of information there. And whatever information they give out there, people there just take it and then they begin to spread it from one person to the other. But the huge challenge there is they are unable to tell if this information is accurate, if it's correct, or if it should be something that they should, give out to some other people. So a lot of the time, they do not understand the dangers that are, involved in some of this information that they carry around. And a lot of the time, we are afraid that health misinformation finds its way into this community. And, when we talk about incidents like the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, where there was, various information, and then people who do not have access to the internet just roll or go with whatever it is they hear from their neighbor.
Catherine's team use radio dramas in Pidgin English to make fact-checking accessible, whereas Chris established fact-checking clubs in schools and communities. Both of these approaches prove that sometimes the oldest communication methods remain the most powerful and that effective fact-checking is about education and trust, not just debunking. Their work revealed something deeper. Fact-checking can thrive even without the internet, as long as people have tools they understand and trust. But in our third episode, we encountered an even more fundamental obstacle, one that affects both online and offline fact-checkers alike. What happens when the information you need simply doesn't exist? As with claims about services that are never officially recorded, or even worse, when it is deliberately hidden, such as government data removed from public view. This is the daily reality for Elias in Ethiopia and Ramaz in Sudan. Fact-checkers working in environments where governments treat information as a weapon rather than a public good.
Access to information in my country, Ethiopia, has never been easy. Since I started journalism, as far as I remember, it was very difficult. There is a tendency to believe among government officials, even the private sector, to provide information may mean like doing favor for journalists, not like executing their work. And currently, as you know, a lot is going on in Ethiopia, particularly since the deadly war, the very unfortunate war, which cost like hundreds of thousands of people since 2020. And after that war broke out, it has even become very difficult because particularly the government, as you can imagine, is the main source of information in such cases, has literally shut down its doors. There is no press conference provided by the communication office. And to your surprise, the last time the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, the ruler of that country, gave a press conference was more than 4 years ago. No press conference at all, except the tweets and then the certain social media posters. And then when you go to government officials or ministries asking them for information, there is a tendency to fear that they might be somehow be held accountable for speaking to media, be it media outlets or fact-checking organizations. There is no data available on their websites that you can refer to. So in so many instances, as you described it, we hit a dead end. And then that means that like there are several stories that you would like to work on, but at the end we are not able to do.
Working in these information deserts, Elias and Ramaz rely on international databases, grassroots sources, and geolocation technology just to do basic verification. Their persistence reminds us that access to information isn't a journalistic convenience, it's a human right. And when governments withhold data, they compromise citizens' ability to make informed decisions about their own lives. Yet, not all fact-checkers struggle with too little information, as highlighted in our fourth episode, where we met teams operating in the opposite environment. Newsrooms overflowing with data, racing against the clock to publish breaking news. Here, the challenge isn't finding information. It's carving out space for verification, like double-checking a viral claim before a live broadcast within an industry built on speed. This is where Ebunulua Olafusi, head of the fact-checking desk at Nigeria's cable network, comes in. She's part of a quiet revolution happening inside traditional media organizations across the continent.
What differentiates news reporting, that's traditional news reporting, and fact-checking for me is the extra steps that a fact-checker takes before publishing or reporting a story. I gave an example of breaking news. Like when you are working on a breaking news, you are putting out an information that needs to go out immediately. It's happening at that instance. It could be developing, but that moment you have to be very quick and efficient, and you cannot delve deep. While doing your news reporting, you cover the 5 W's in journalism, which is the what, where, when, why, and how or why or when. But for fact checking, you go beyond the 5 W's. It's more of fact checking is more of an analytical job. You analyze, you probe the reason for an action, the sentiment behind those actions, and the impact of that particular information on the public consuming the news. So for me, in fact-checking, what differentiates it majorly is that you offer more context, you investigate and present accurate facts. Now that people are aware of what misinformation and disinformation is, so sometimes when people see posts or reports online, they tag you, that's your media organization, and ask you if this is true or not. So during the debate or during the election campaigns or the process itself, we check these politicians and seeing they've seen the handwriting or the word that you can't just go out there and say, you can't just go out there and come up with unfounded claims and just get away with it. So before they go out, I'm sure they read widely so that they don't go out there to start, throwing around bogus claims, unfounded claims, big figures that you can't back with evidence.
Ebu shared how Nigerian politicians now preface their statements with, "You can fact check this." Proof that constant scrutiny changes behavior. She described a recent press interview where a public official confidently quoted a statistic, and within minutes, fact-checkers and viewers alike flagged it as incorrect, prompting a swift correction. Moments like this show how institutionalizing fact-checking within newsrooms creates a culture of accountability that extends far beyond any single story. Her work showed us how fact-checking desks are holding local actors accountable, which includes politicians, officials, public figures who must now think twice before making false claims.
You're listening to Behind the Facts.
This is Behind the Facts.
This is Behind the Facts.
This is Behind the
This is
Facts.
Behind the Facts.
You're listening to Behind the Facts.
Thanks for tuning in into Behind the Facts.
In our 5th episode, we zoomed out to examine threats that don't originate locally at all. Sometimes the misinformation poisoning our information ecosystem comes from thousands of miles away, crafted by foreign actors with strategic agendas. This is the world of foreign information manipulation and interference, better known as FIMI. And Samba Baji, a researcher at Oslo Metropolitan University, has been tracking how these campaigns destabilize African nations, often with devastating local consequences.
Foreign information, manipulation, and interference. FIMI, it refers to tactics that are used by foreign entities to disrupt a country, to disrupt a nation, using disinformation, propaganda, and other type of method that are designed to achieve particular objectives, whether they are political, economic, destabilizing a country. So in simpler terms, FIMI involve a foreign actor, so foreign actor, be it a government, corporation, or group, or it depends on what type of entity it is, that is targeting a specific country. We have various actors, various players. I would say, let's take like specific context like West Africa or the Sahel region, because this is the part of Africa that is widely cited as a setting for FIMI. We will start with Russia, as Russia is the usual suspect, and as it is a hot topic regarding its influence in the Sahel region. So Russia is the key player in terms of foreign information manipulation and influence in the region. We have China. China is also very, very, very active. It is also notable in the region. There is also a key player that is often goes unnoticed. It's Turkey. Is also a major player in the region. Additionally, we cannot forget the long-standing players in the region, such as France, the US, and Great Britain. I think that by also focusing only on foreign influence of FIMI, we are obscuring the agenda of local actors such as certain states, like in the Sahel. I would cite some states like Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, which also use influence tactics, manipulation on their opinion in a strategy to maintain the power. So I think also maybe there is a need to better conceptualize, to understand that also these manipulative tactics are not only coming from foreign actors, but now local actors are also using these tactics for their own agenda.
What makes FIMI particularly dangerous is how it exploits existing tensions. Samba described Niger's national television broadcasting Wagner Group footage that falsely claimed French mercenaries were training in Benin to attack Niger, nearly sparking a regional conflict. And increasingly, local actors have learned these foreign tactics and deploy them domestically. Spotting FIMI now requires media literacy, diverse sources, and trained journalists who can recognize coordinated, inauthentic behavior. Samba's research reveals how external forces manipulate our information landscape for geopolitical gain. For our sixth and final episode, we tune to a crisis that's both global in scale and deeply local in impact. One where the narrative about Africa has long been controlled by voices from elsewhere, often painting us as victims. We close the year with perhaps the most critical challenge of our time, climate change. And in this conversation, Lanre Olagunju, editor-in-chief of Check Climate Africa, is doing something revolutionary. He's taking back the story.
What gets overlooked, in my opinion, is the ability for us to explain the climate issues from the angle of Africans. And that's a very important perspective to this conversation. Most times, when it comes to Africa, much of the global reporting is filtered through Western lenses. And it's not so ideal because you can't solve the problems of Africans using, another approach or the way it affects other people in their own region. So most times we're talking about the crisis, vulnerability, doom, and it looks like a very catastrophic thing. Now, are we all going to all die because of the climate change issue? So I think that that's a challenge, but we have not come to a point where we African journalists are beginning to now speak about climate change in the ways that affect Africans, because many Africans still engage in farming, engage in mining. For instance, they say that many of the roles where extreme heat affects Africans is when it has to do with those people who work outdoor, the miners, the fishers, those who are in construction. So that might not be the ideal in the Western world. So the challenge, what is being overlooked, is that we are not reporting how climate change is affecting Africans in the way that affects them day to day, and that's a challenge. And until when we are able to articulate that challenge from the average African's perspective, we can't even talk about indigenous solution. We can't talk about African innovation. We can't even preach or even analyze issues around resilience.
Rather than accepting the familiar one-dimensional narrative, Lanre expressed his frustration with victim portrayals. Yes, Africa is vulnerable, but not helpless. And in our conversation, he focuses on relatable impacts like farmers facing failed harvests, women walking further for water, children missing school due to flooding. But he also highlights African innovation, architects designing naturally ventilated buildings, drought-resistant agriculture, local solutions that work without massive sources of funding. And in doing so, Check Climate Africa counters climate misinformation with science, local relevance, and hope rooted in action. 6 episodes, 6 challenges, 1 common thread. The people we spoke to this year refuse to accept the world where lies travel faster than the truth. Saja fights algorithms with innovation. Catherine and Chris reach communities algorithms can't touch. Elias and Ramaz verify truth even when data is weaponized. Ebu builds accountability into newsrooms. Samba exposes manipulation. Lanre reclaims Africa's climate narrative. And as we head into 2026, the challenges won't be easy. But if 2025 taught us anything, fact-checkers are innovating just as fast as the misleaders. But before we go, we encourage you to go back and listen to the full episodes from this year. Each conversation we featured today is a glimpse. There's so much more depth waiting for you. And to all of you who've been with us, who've listened, shared, questioned, and even engaged, thank you. Every time you pause before sharing, verify before believing, and demand evidence before accepting, you're doing the work of fact-checking. From all of us at Behind the Facts, we wish you a joyful, peaceful, and above all, truth-filled festive season. Rest, reflect, and come 2026, we'll be back with new conversations, new challenges, and new champions of accuracy. Until then, remember, truth doesn't defend itself. We do. I'm Thipe Maelane, and this is Behind the Facts. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and see you in 2026.